Hello, this is Lee back once again for another video. Long time no see. This is a long overdue review of Shimmer, volume 69, yes. And here you can see the cover, spoilers, with the champion, Nicole Matthews, volume 69 there. And this is actually the original case. It's so new in my collection of digital versatile discs that it has not been swapped out for the fully transparent case. There you can see the little holding clips mechanism and the frosted plastic there. This was a rather entertaining volume, I must say. Got off to kind of a rough start, being late for the show of previously, but this was perfectly fine, and let me go through these for you. So volume 69 here. So to start off, Courtney Rush versus Nikki Storm. Now, I rather miss Nikki Storm. Apparently she's been out of the country, of course, from her native Scotland. Has not been back to Shimmer in a while, and I kind of miss getting her autograph. Rather eccentric character, very muscle-bound and comedy-prone, but excellent wrestler. And I think she's come a long way in winning over the fans. And do appreciate it. She has these very long promos, not just complaining about the pronunciation of her homeland, Glasgow, Scotland, but also, basically becoming very, vain, and over the top, just very funny, very well-rounded wrestler, I would say. And in this match, Courtney Rush is still, a bit of her old self, her, good guy persona. And essentially, they have a comedy bit where, Nikki Storm, has this letter, of course she's shown it before, claiming to be from the Backstreet Boys, this boy band from the 90s, saying, how wonderful she is and how much in love they all are with her because, she's the greatest. Not just the greatest wrestler in the galaxy, but also, the most beautiful woman ever. So just very funny. But anyway, there's an accident where the paper is torn. A very silly reason for a feud, but the match starts off, and of course Courtney Rush is completely blown away. Normally she's the one that's messing with her opponents, kind of teasing them and so forth, but here she just kind of gets taken aback by just the eccentricity and strangeness of Nikki Storm. So, good way to open the show, really, with this match. So now moving on. The second match, Madison Eagles took on, let's see here. Yeah, it's a little bit harder to see on the frosted plastic. Marty Bell. Now, Marty Bell, of course, has been seen at TNA as Marty Bell, part of the Dollhouse, and she and Mia Yim, known as Jade, there have gotten a little bit more opportunities to actually wrestle and have matches and do moves and not just, ambush people backstage and kind of just act like little schoolgirls. But here, of course, Marty Bell is perfectly in her element, and of course, preening about for her, with the hairspray and everything. It was a little less over the top this time, so she's not quite the, female Zima Ion. Of course, he had a gimmick in TNA where he was constantly applying hairspray and, acting very conceited and vain, and, of course, being a cheater. But Madison Eagles, of course, heel herself, quite a cheater, much more serious, kind of annoyed by Marty Bell and just no-selling her moves and basically just disrespecting her. As if, she's just a speed bump on the way to, her true, position as, just crushing and grinding Nicole Matthews into the ground as punishment for, stealing her title from her and just embarrassing her. Because really, Madison Eagles was just, I would say, in my personal opinion, was the greatest champion that Shimmer had. Not because she's my favorite wrestler of all. Certainly I prefer, Mischief and others, but just as a champion, Madison Eagles was just so charismatic and just so dynamic and just very imposing. I think she just did an excellent job in that role as a champion. I was just very impressed. I'm very sad to see her leave as the champion, but you could just see how obsessed she became with having the belt and holding on to it, cradling it and rocking back and forth and just talking on and on about the belt as if it were the ring from the Lord of the Rings, comedy film series, Gollum and all that. So it's just a little bit funny, a little bit interesting, but also she could back it up. She had the skills. Even though she cheated her way to the top. Now, Nicole Matthews, as a champion, I'll speak more about it later. She cheated her way to the top, and she continues to cheat. Of course, she is a good wrestler in her own right, but you know that she takes the shortcuts all the way through, and Porsche Perez often interferes on her behalf and so forth. So there are different types of villains, but Marty Bell is kind of a small-time villain, really, compared to Madison Eagles, and I think they played their roles nicely. Now, sometimes I get a little bit annoyed when they play the wrong music with wrestlers. They're supposed to play the music for whoever won, but sometimes they'll play the music just to show, well, that person's in charge, or that person had just had a good moment. But anyway, overall, I have nothing to complain about here. Okay, moving on. Yes, okay. Yes, moving on. The third match on Volume 69, we have Heidi Lovelace and Solo Darling versus Kimberly and Cherry Bomb. Now, of course, Kimberly and Cherry Bomb are the Kimber Bombs, this tag team, very full of themselves. They have a goofy, entrance where they point to their bottoms, where they have the name written of the tag team. And of course, Cherry Bomb, not quite her screechy self, and she has not yet been injured, as would later happen. It took her out of the action, the in-ring action anyway. Kimberly, of course, good as ever. The two of them, more, not so much bullies, but just egotistical and kind of delusional heels, against Heidi Lovelace and Solo Darling. Of course, Solo Darling playing this kind of animal cosplayer. She kind of howls. She acts like a fox or a wolf or something, and she has her energy drink backstage, kind of like a fruit punch or a Kool-Aid, whatever you want to call it, a flavory sugar beverage, which gives her hyper activity for a short period of time, allowing her to defeat her opponents. Sort of similar to what it used to happen with Kelly Skater and her Ruroids, or supplements. Anyway, not quite exactly, but similar. And then, of course, Heidi Lovelace, who's really come into her own, with this punk rock ragdoll. Of course, this time she was much more just kind of finding herself, her image, of course, resembling a younger Serena Deeb, but, she'll become a very impressive wrestler over time, I would say. And she becomes very emotional when she gets a win, because she doesn't win often. She's one of these rookie wrestlers, as far as Shimmer is concerned, at the time of this volume especially. So, it's good to see the two of them. Good match. Some of these earlier matches, sometimes they have the smaller wrestlers, the kind of wrestlers that are less established. The cute wrestlers, they focus on their looks and less on their wrestling ability, but I would say all of these wrestlers are coming into their own, and you can see it, you can see them improving and really, showing that they have talent. And I think, it's a good dynamic. Not the greatest, but, pretty decent. Moving on, Xander Bale versus Rhea O'Reilly. Poor Xander Bale. She's this very small wrestler, and she really tries hard, but she's just so small. She's like a little doll compared to most of the wrestlers she faces, the underdog. And the crowd was just dead for her match. And I feel sorry for her, because the crowd is so often dead. I think in her most recent matches I saw, there's a little more activity, but at this time still the crowd just is not engaged. They'll clap politely at times, but just not a lot of excitement. And so it must be difficult, for a wrestler like that to just, forge ahead, do what you can to try to get excitement. And, Rhea O'Reilly, a bit of a rookie herself, she's been around for a while now, but, she plays this villain and, trying to put over, little Sandra Bale. And she tried very hard, but I think there's nothing really wrong with the match. It was about, average, really, but the crowd was just not engaged, and that makes you feel a little bit like, well, what's happening here? What's wrong? So, sort of like some of Miss Natural's matches, you're just wondering, like, what is it? Why are people so tired and not paying attention? But it's still early in the evening, so that could be. But later on, you will see Sandra Bale improve significantly, and I think the fans start to give her due, really. And I've always liked Rhea O'Reilly, even though she started off just kind of as a... her entire gimmick is, I'm Irish. But that's okay. And it is St. Patrick's Day, so this one's for you, Rhea. Way to go. Luck of the Irish and all that. Anyway, so moving on. Candice LeRae, who I greatly respect, versus Aveda Scott, versus Leva Bates, versus Jenny Rose. Now, Jenny Rose I spoke about earlier when she had her debut. She wears these sparkly dresses, and she really leaves these little sparkles all over the ring, almost like fairy dust or something. And later matches, you can see, the other wrestlers roll around, and the sparkles kind of get stuck to their bodies, and so they're all sparkly after the matches. It's very silly. So anyway, just no one's ever commented on that in the show, but Jenny Rose with her sparkly dresses, one of the only wrestlers who really dresses in a dress, sparkly dress, as if she's kind of a figure skater. Kind of reminds me of maybe some of the old Joshi wrestlers from the 1990s with their outfits, kind of the figure skater-esque, designs. Of course, she has the bright white kick pads, very distinctive. And certainly, no slouch in the ring, but she was just kind of like, who is this young woman? So we're starting to get used to her and see what she can do besides just leave sparkles in the ring. So anyway, Leva Bates with her usual, cosplaying ways, following another inspiration from Guardians of the Galaxy, this comedy film, which I actually saw recently. I'm not sure if I'm going to do a review, but she played Groot, the tree person. And I haven't commented on every single gimmick that Leva Bates has done. She plays this nerd geek, comic book, video game, movie fan, young person who, tries to play these characters. And of course, she has to be herself. She can't be these other characters, but she tries, not having the powers of these actual characters. She fails, but she's sort of a lovable person. And of course, without Alice in Danger, she doesn't seem to cheat as much. So that was that sort of evil/good mother influence from her. So it's interesting to see Leva Bates striking out on her own. I haven't watched much of her in NXT, but she is there as Blue Pants, just because her Cyclops outfit, they had to remove the X-Men symbol and everything. She became Blue Pants. But anyway, Aveda Scott, of course, becoming more of the evil secretary, kind of like she is in Ring of Honor, where unfortunately she does not wrestle, she just plays a valet. And Candice LeRae, of course, who is much more than a pretty face, and not just a kind of a dirty player, but, just kind of has her own... she kind of reminds me of a young... if there was a female version of Michael Keaton, the comedy actor. So the four of them have a pretty entertaining match overall, and I won't spoil it, but kind of gives them each a chance to kind of show what they can do. And Jenny Rose, kind of coming into her own in this match, showing that, she's not just a sparkly dress, she can do more. So it was good to see them. Moving on, Lufisto versus Nicole Savoy. And Lufisto, I think I commented on some of her outfits fairly recently in the series. He was saying, they just don't have the flair and excitement as kind of their old costumes. You seem to put more effort into them. Here it's okay. She's the wounded Al Ronan, a different character, lacking, the peekaboo character. I think the peekaboo was retired, apparently. She was, damaged by the villains, the heels, pulled off the head of the doll and kind of smacked to the ground with a belt and other things. So she's out with injury, I suppose. Or maybe Kana took her back to Japan. I'm not sure what happened, but no peekaboo. But Lufisto sort of has, she's the serious warrior that she often is, But there's a little bit of the playful side of Lufisto, a little bit of the comedy, not the sort of perverse Lufisto of old, but, the kind of the fun-loving and occasional, she has the little goofy, faux innocent, replies to the referee, when she gets called out for cheating, because she often bites and does other things she's not supposed to. Sort of like a rambunctious child, she just can't help herself. Sometimes she goes a little mad, sometimes. But anyway, Lufisto always entertaining. Nicole Savoy, greatly respect her since I saw her in the pay-per-view. Reminds me much of the spunky, Latina sensation in Mercedes Martinez in some of her time. But of course, she has much more the high-flying style, equal to an EV. Of course, Nicole Savoy, mouthing off to the fans, and just really doing her darndest to prove, that, she is the best. She can take down these veteran wrestlers, no problem. So, and of course, Lufisto to try to put her in her place. A very good match, I would say. One of the better ones on this volume. And, this is kind of an in-between show. It's, not the end-all be-all, but certainly good. I always enjoy Lufisto anyway. She's a very good entertainer. Moving on. Tsukasa Fujimoto. Here we get into the Joshi. And Kaori Yoneyama, the veteran. The two of them, of course, Fujimoto more of the, younger rookie wrestler. And the two of them versus Sassy Steffi and Nevaeh. Now, Nevaeh, wonderful as a heel, and she's kind of bulked up a little bit. I think she's filled out. She was very skinny back in her tag team days. I think she looks great. And there were these little girls, two little girls in the audience who were just in love with Nevaeh. They would cheer her. No matter what she did, they threw streamers for her. It was just very exciting. Some of the other fans, I think, were a bit disgruntled. They said, "Oh, don't cheer her. She's bad," But after a while, they just couldn't help themselves. These girls just loved Nevaeh. And Nevaeh kind of like, had a little bit of, a rapport with them. She kind of blew a kiss to them, and she didn't really try to fight it. She smiled in spite of herself because she's the bad person, but these kids still like her. So, do you hear that, Nevaeh? You have to be a good role model for those kids, so don't let them down. Fight against the urge to be bad. And of course, she was just smiling throughout much of the match, with her. And of course, Sassy Steffi. Initially I did not really think much of Sassy Steffi. I thought, oh, she's just one of these like knockout types. But really, a lot of her style is due to the injuries she sustained over time. She just can't do it what she used to. But she does her best, and really, putting over the younger talent. Kind of guiding them through, and really, she has a great role in that sense in the show. And I can appreciate her more, I think, than initially. So, Sassy Steffi, certainly a bad, cheater, bully type person. So the two of them, do what they can to win against, the Joshi. Now, Yoneyama, little bit of a cheater sometimes, little bit of a bully, but the two of them, Fujimoto taking so much damage in these fights, it's like Yoneyama kind of throws her in the way. Like, here, take the fall for me, take the hits, and then I'll jump in and try to get the points. So they have their own little character, dynamic going on. And, of course, always a pleasure to see Joshi matches. As far as things go, not as maybe as exciting as some of the bigger matches, but, it's always a treat because we know that they will put it all out there. They'll always, do their best. And, of course, I would say Nevaeh came out of this the strongest just because, she had such enthusiasm from those young fans. And she just did as much as she could. So she kind of stole the show, really. So anyway, next match, Cheerleader Melissa versus Athena. Now, of course, Cheerleader Melissa, bad, becoming this villain of late. Athena, had turned face and become, this rising star, trying to do better. Maybe a little full of herself at times, but the two of them, squaring off for a good solid match. And I won't spoil this one, but, you did have some twists and turns. And, at times I've commented on cheerleader Melissa, not really having the best promo skills, but I think she did a good job. She just kind of let it all go. Just kind of got angry and just kind of yelled and just kind of said it like it was. And I thought, I think she's trying harder to do better promos. Because, when you see cheerleader Melissa just talking off the cuff in these little backstage interviews, she's great. She's joking around. She's, making observations and telling little stories. She's great. But whenever she does a promo, it's like all of a sudden she's really stiff and unnatural. But this time I think she was much more effective. So I appreciated that. And Athena at times, she'll botch moves and, not quite have a very good match, but, except of course early on she was very impressive. But I think she's come back into her own, certainly on this volume, and nothing to complain about as far as Athena goes. Now, of course, there's always those backstage shenanigans, but, we'll save that. So the two of them did great. Now we have Kayle Rain versus Kana. Now, Kana, a great wrestler, known as Asuka in NXT. I do miss seeing her, but, it's great to enjoy these matches here. She's much more the smiley, kind of lovable Kana, but she does become, vicious and violent in these matches when called upon. And really, she doesn't need a whole lot of moves. She has the kick, the off-the-rope drop kick. There are lots of arm bars and, sleeper hold, and but that's pretty much it. Not a lot of other moves, except, occasionally she'll just kind of go crazy with, palm strikes and kicks to the ankle. And I think she has an ankle lock in there too. But Kana just, her style is very much emulating, that MMA type fighter, kind of a shoot fighter. Looks very realistic, most of the time I would say. Once in a while, just like every wrestler, there's maybe a slip up here and there. It just kind of looks a little bit fake, but, for the most part, very impressive. She definitely gives her all, no matter where she is and what she's doing. Certainly very impressive in Japan, of course, but she's made a great showing in America, and apparently Kana, big fan of American culture, Western culture. So I, of course, enjoy playing as her in the video games, too. Very impressive character. But I could go on about her and others of my favorites from the roster. But Kayle Rain. Initially I thought, she looks like a WWE diva. Well, a bit too small, perhaps, to be one of their divas, but, very slender, bright red, flaming hair like many divas in NXT. Well, I hate to call them divas, really. Women wrestlers. Divas, WWE term for the female wrestlers, which sort of implies, that they're stuck up or whatever. But Kayle Rain, no slouch, definitely has grown on me. She has her, her high-flying moves and her character, kind of, certainly a heroic character, but just kind of a sly and clever wrestler. So it was a good match, and it was a good combination of the two. Then we have Jessica Havoc versus Porsche Perez. Now, Porsche Perez, usually, the villain, the bad person. She acts like, she looks like Peter Pan half the time, and she acts like a little schoolboy, but she's, obviously a young woman. They made fun of her for looking, so young for so long, but really she looked like a scared little girl, because, previously she had interfered in the match with Jessica Havoc and accidentally smashed her with a wrench, and Jessica Havoc was out to destroy her. This was sort of a reverse of the classic David and Goliath, story, from your biblical scriptures, where normally, the big giant is the bad person, and the little unsuspecting underdog is the one you cheer for to cut down that giant, But in this case, the giant is the wronged woman, and she takes delight in, attacking Porsche to destroy her. And, of course, Porsche Perez is the small, bad person who brought this on herself. She woke the sleeping giant. So it was an interesting reversal of that classic, trope. Interesting to see. And, of course, Porsche, now with her retirement, due to injury, but she played that character, that bully that deserved everything that came to her right to the end. So I have to give her credit. I never liked Porsche, but then that was her character. That she succeeded in making herself unlikable as a wrestler. So there you go. And of course, Jessica Havoc, has gone from, evil to kind of sympathetic, and letting her, of course, violence show through in this match, as expected. Next, we have Mia Yim versus Aquino. Now, Aquino, classic Joshi wrestler with kind of this butch, superhero, Power Ranger type look to her. Looks like a high-flying wrestler, but she doesn't do a lot of high-flying moves. But certainly kind of has a mixture of sort of a comedy, kind of a, like, really? What are you going to do to me? I'm way out of your league kind of thing, to, a more skillful, clever veteran wrestler. Joshi, talent, and of course Mia Yim, this rising star. Mia Yim's come such a long way, from being a rookie, getting beat up by Kana, to now, branching out. Of course, now she has appeared in both WWE as a kind of a, valet character and one of the Rosebuds, and also appearing in TNA both as herself and as Jade. Really proving, I think, Mia Yim has proven that she is not just a pretty face, that she actually can wrestle very well, and she has a likable character, and she even has, some good lines here and there, some quips in the middle of the match, and she just seems like a fun-loving kind of people person in there. And so, once again, it gives her a chance to shine against someone like Aquino, who was, it was just a very good matchup, I would say, between the two of them. Now the Shimmer Tag Team Championship match. Kelly Skater and Tomoka Nakagawa, 3G, the Global Green Gangsters, with the longest introduction of any tag team ever. But, going from lovable heels to lovable faces, or tweeners, I suppose. Tomoka with their occasional cheating, against Surya Knight and Mayumi Ozaki. Evil Surya Knight, and then evil Mayumi Ozaki. Now, Ozaki didn't say much. Occasionally she said something in Japanese. There was actually a backstage segment they had earlier in the show where the two of them and Rhea O'Reilly, and they all put out their middle fingers, this obscene gesture from the Western world. And the Shimmer logo appeared just as they were doing it, so it kind of covered it up. It was kind of funny that it sort of censored their profanity, their hand gesture profanity. But actually later in the match, Surya will flash the middle fingers, like a Steve Austin, and no one says anything. There's no censorship of any kind. So apparently it was a family show until Surya steps into the ring, and she uses mild profanity at times, and it's just very different. And I forgot to mention there was a moment earlier where Porsche Perez actually spit on Jessica Havoc, and it was kind of funny because it was sort of like a heroic gesture, like, in your face, but it was like, uh-oh, you're in trouble now. So anyway, going back. Yes, so Surya and Mayumi Ozaki. Now this was a little strange, this tag team match, because in a tag team match you assume that normally the rule is, one person from a team is in at a time, they have to make the tag, and then the other has to stay out. And if the other person comes in to interfere, they can get disqualified. But because Mayumi Ozaki made this deal backstage, and I'm not sure if they did this because, of her mobility or translation issues, but every match she was in was going to be no disqualification because she was a hardcore wrestler for so long. Because of that, she would just use weapons, randomly. But no one else brought weapons to the ring. 3G didn't bring weapons. That's strange. I know their faces, but why didn't they just bring a chair, a bat, or brass knuckles, something? Ozaki brought a chain. She was the only one that realized it was a hardcore match. It's kind of strange. I thought everyone had advance warning. It's not like they just announced it at the last minute. Oh, by the way, it's no disqualification. So the believability was stretched a little bit. The other thing is, why make the tag? You can't be disqualified. There's no disqualifications, right? So why not just make it a tornado tag? You've seen this in the video games, all four wrestlers are in the ring at the same time. It's a free-for-all until one team is eliminated. Pin or submission. But that didn't happen. Instead, you had them waiting dutifully outside the ring until it's their turn, and then they jump in after the tag, but sometimes they jump in. So it didn't quite make sense. I think the booking for this match was a little off. Now, if it had been the, standard regular match, the heels sneaking in with the weapons occasionally, that's fine. The referee doesn't see it. But instead, you just have, the referee powerless, but they still wait their turn for the tag. It's kind of silly. So, a little bit off there. I think Shimmer could have done a better job. But certainly nothing against the participants. It was still an entertaining match. So, if you could suspend disbelief because of those odd booking stipulations, I think you will enjoy it. And then the Shimmer Championship match, Nicole Matthews versus Evie. Now, of course, Evie, her likable, plucky, a little bit scared because this is it. This is the big match against Nicole Matthews. And there's some shenanigans, of course, because this is Nicole Matthews we're talking about. This wasn't the greatest match I've seen them in. Certainly I've seen better out of Nicole Matthews and out of Evie, to be honest. But it wasn't bad. It wasn't unwatchable. But it did leave me wanting more. So this volume, certainly good, but it makes me say to myself, where's volume 70? Let's watch that. Let's see what happens next. So if you just buy this by itself, you may feel still hungry for more Shimmer. So definitely check out Volume 7, which I will be watching, actually, and reviewing shortly as I get the time. So thanks for listening. Appreciate it. It's good to be back. Good to be back reviewing Shimmer like old times. So hopefully, I'll be back to do some more reviews before too long. So appreciate it. And you take care now.